All right. Hello and welcome to our EtonHouse Parenting webinar series. Thank you to everybody who has been able to join us this afternoon. We are really excited to be here and to share some ideas and suggestions with you today. In today's fast-paced and ever-changing world, it's essential to equip our children with the tools that they need to navigate challenges, any setbacks, and definitely uncertainties that may pop up or arise across every day. Today, we will dive deeper into a crucial topic, which you are all very passionate about and signed on to hear more about, which is all about nurturing resilience in children and empowering them to thrive in the fast-paced world, but also when facing adversity. So, as we start this lovely journey together, we would like to just introduce ourselves and get to know each other a little bit more. Everyone has taken precious time out of their day today, so it will be really important for us to feel comfortable with this conversation and to hear a little bit more of who are our speakers today. So I will start. My name is Miss Tracy. I am originally from South Africa, and I have been living in Singapore for the last 8 years. I've been an educator for over 15 years already, and I have been leading the teaching and learning across our nursery, kindergarten, and our primary years. I'm currently now a curriculum coordinator at our beautiful EtonHouse campus based on Sentosa, which really is an inspiring location, and so I really love it here. And I'm deeply passionate about our pastoral aspect of education and the impact that it has on academics and the progress that children are making in their daily learning, especially considering their mental, their emotional, and their social well-being, which is really important. I'm also delighted to be joined by Miss Amanda Lee and Dr. Hina, who will be sharing a little bit more about themselves as well. So maybe Amanda and Dr. Hina, if you would like to share.
Yeah. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for taking your lunchtime, the lunchtime hour with us. We really appreciate you joining us this afternoon. And just to do a quick introduction of myself. My name is Amanda Lee, and I am the curriculum coordinator at EtonHouse Preschool at Upper Bukit, Timah. So very similar to Tracy, I've been an early childhood educator for more than 10 years now. Recently a colleague asked me, so how long have you been in the early childhood industry? And I honestly lost count. I had to count back, how old exactly am I? And I'm also a mother to two boys, two beautiful boys. They are currently 4 years old and 2 years old. And I am also on this journey to parenting because I grew up in Singapore, and I grew up under my parents who did do a little bit more of an authoritarian parenting style. So it is really a journey of parenting for me as well. So it's really shifting my mindsets from what I knew, as a traditional Asian parenting to implementing more respectful parenting strategies. So I hope that today I will be able to share with you what I've learned and I've tried out with my children at home, as well as, working with the children at EtonHouse. Yeah, so let me pass it over to Dr. Hina, who will introduce herself.
Hi, so I'm Dr. Hina. I'm a family physician at International Medical Clinic. I'm currently working at the Genita branch. I'm originally from the UK, but I've been in Singapore for close to 5 years now. I'm also a mother to two young boys, 7 and 2. And I think for me, the parenting journey is about adapting to parenting away, in a different country, away from your extended family, but also in today's world where we have new and ever-changing cultural influences, social media influences that can affect our children. So that's what. Thank you all for joining us today as well.
Thank you, Dr. Hina, and thank you, Amanda. It's so lovely to hear about your families and your boys. And absolutely, it's a bit tricky when you have boys at home and also you are teaching in the classroom. You tend to try a few sneaky tricks on our own children at home and trial to see if it works out or not. But it's a great way for us to really just understand children and who they are. So thank you very much. Thank you for sharing your expertise with us today. So let's get straight into it. Let's dive into the first question, the question that we are all here for today. What is resilience and why is it important for children to work towards becoming resilient? So maybe Dr. Hina, you would like to get the ball rolling with this and from your experience and expertise.
Sure, thank you. So I think resilience is the ability to successfully withstand and adapt to challenging, negative, and traumatic life events through mental, social, and behavioral flexibility. And we can see it's defined, in many different ways. But for example, the American Psychology Association definition goes on to list 3 factors that can contribute to how well people adapt to adversity. So 1 is the quality and availability of social resources. 2 is how people view and engage with the world. And 3 is specific coping strategies. And this is where I think that building resilience within childhood development is important. All these 3 factors are set and determined by our childhoods, and equipping our children with the skills to deal with challenges in a positive way so that they can move on and then learn from those experiences will help to build their resilience. Guiding their interactions and their social networks is key too. And I think the thing that we have to remember is that after all, children are more adaptable. Their brains and personalities are still developing, and it therefore makes sense to teach them these skills early on so that it will put them in better stand for the future.
Yes. I love that, Dr. Hina. That's just incredible. Such powerful key words that you've popped out there: adaptability, interactions with others, understanding ourselves, and definitely brain development, really understanding who children are. So that is a very powerful start, because we really do all aim to capitalize on this very precious time that we have with children, especially in the early years of their development. It's also about us reflecting on a wide range of tricky encounters or experiences that we may engage in across our day. Every day it's happening. And because we are all human beings, there's no difference between adults becoming more resilient as well as children. But with children, we do have that time where we can really support them with strategies and what to do as they are constantly learning and growing and evolving. So thank you for that. I love all those keywords happening out over there. Amanda, how do you feel about resilience?
Yeah, I think Dr. Hina put in really a lot of important keywords. And I think if there's just too much information for all of you to remember, I think just focus on the synonym. So synonym of resilience is perseverance, right? And we see it as the ability to adapt to changes. And I would like us to start by thinking about these 2 questions. So first of all, how do children cope with stress? And have we as parents or as educators, have we empowered our children with the skills to manage stressful situations? So I think very often, us as parents, we are actually triggered by our children's tears. We actually, even myself, I feel guilty at times because we want them to stop crying, because the crying is very triggering to us, and we say, okay, this is too much for us emotionally. We want this to stop. We want them to be happy, right? And we have actually heard lines, or even myself, I've heard myself saying these words, and I have caught myself in action, and I've stopped myself. Like, what am I saying? And reflection point for me. So I find myself saying sometimes, stop crying. What is it you want? You want this? Okay, I'll give it to you. Just stop crying, right? And even in the school setting, at the start of an academic year, we have parents coming to us and we invite them to write down their wishes for their children. And sometimes we see parents writing down their wishes, and statements like "to be happy" appear on these strips of wishes, and we hang them up on our trees, on our natural materials, and we put them up as decorative pieces around the classroom. But I think that is a question and a point for us to reflect upon, because yes, I do agree that we want our children to be happy. But should that be the only goal that we should be setting as for our children? Because it is I think it can be rather dangerous for us to have this pendulum swing, for us to just swing from an authoritarian parenting style to gentle parenting, where we just want our children to be happy and end up becoming permissive parents. So parents ask me, and they are constantly reflecting, right? Because they say, hey, I'm supposed to be a respectful parent, and my child is expressing that he wants this, or he doesn't want to engage in this activity. It's too challenging, it's too difficult. But if I am the parent and if I'm not listening, I am not respectful, right? And is that what I should be doing? You know, these are questions that parents who are new to respectful parenting, they are often thinking about. You know, and I wonder if this statement or these pointers that I've just shared, I wonder if they ring some bells to you. So I just wanted to share some recent statistics that came up on the Today Online paper. And it's actually rather recent. It came up in April 2023. And as you can see from the header over here, 1 in 3 adolescents are actually reporting mental health symptoms such as depression, anxiety, and loneliness. And this study was actually conducted by scoring participants based on a resilience scale. And they noted that participants with lower resilience actually run a higher risk of facing internal psychological distress. So Associate Professor John Wong from the NUS Yong Lu Lin School of Medicine actually highlighted that to better deal and manage challenges and adversities in life, it is very important for adolescents to build a fortified sense of resilience. So this study was also very timely because why? It happened in 2022, just as we were emerging out of the COVID era. And the adolescents, our teenagers, the children, they actually went through a very challenging period of time where they had to adapt to a change in the academic learning environment. They had to learn online, they had to switch to online learning. And despite the change in this environment, assignments were given to them, you know, results, tests were still being implemented. And children had to adapt very, very quickly. And that is all about, that is resilience, isn't it? Us wanting children to adapt to changes. So I think parenting in the 21st century is really interesting because we are now more educated about parenting, and we consciously are making, you know, these decisions and these reflections about, hey, let's be more respectful, let's listen to our children. But at the same time, we are struggling internally because we are trying to step away from what we have been modeled to, and we end up feeling very unsure. So I hope that today we will be able to unpack this for you, so that, you know, you go back today, when your children return from childcare today, you will have that confidence and say, hey, I know these strategies work, they are effective, and I have that confidence to use it because I know that at the end of the day, slowly but surely, we will be developing our children's resilience. And, you know, based on the study alone, you can tell that these are long-term effects. These are not things that we can see right now, but you will see the fruit of the successes in years to come. Yeah, so I'm going to pass the time back to Tracy.
Amanda, I absolutely agree with you. Resilience is definitely about perseverance. It is about nurturing our mental, our emotional, and our physical well-being as we become increasingly in tune to who we are as individuals. And it comes down to it being a human thing. You know, even as adults, we are still building that resilience in different ways. And children, we are able to then teach them and guide them and show them different strategies and skills to help them build that resilience in a lot more deeper and more meaningful way. So how we navigate through these hard moments that arise throughout every day for everybody, no matter where you live, these moments can be really challenging. And the most important thing that I took from your sharing as well, Amanda, is reflection. The first thing you said was, I'm going to take time to reflect on that. You know, as a mum and also as a teacher, reflection is key to understanding who we are and also to understanding others and other perspectives. It also helps us make choices and decide on what actions and next steps that we might take when we do encounter really difficult times. And difficult times doesn't always have to be big things. They can be really small things that are hard and challenging in the moment. It's only through this kind of active process with honest and critical self-reflection that we are then able to adapt and we are able to then evolve. This helps us to really get through these challenges, to experience what we've chosen to do and the reflection from that. And then when we engage in new challenges, we have that opportunity from our experience to pull on and go, right, how am I going to navigate myself through this? What am I going to do? What am I going to try? So if we think of resilience and strategies for resilience as a tool belt that's wrapped around your waist, right? And no matter what you encounter, you pull out a tool and you test it out. Some might not work at all. Some might work in different situations or with different people. It's a bit of trial and error. There's no set way. If you do these 5 things, you are definitely going to build your resilience and you are going to figure it out, because everybody is totally different. Every interaction is different. Every situation is different. So we need to honor these perspectives and really stick to the strategies that we've tried, but also be open to new strategies depending on what we are engaging in. So it's within this practice of activating our little strategy tool belt that we can then learn, we then adapt, we grow, and we really truly begin to understand who we are. So when I'm in this difficult moment, who am I in this difficult moment? What is my response going to be? How am I choosing to react or respond? What is going to be next steps that I might try? Do I know the other person very well? How do I interact with them or the situation that has arisen? As adults, we have acquired these techniques and these strategies over time. We've also done trial and error. We've been in a taxi where we have gone the wrong way and we get really frustrated with the taxi driver, and how we respond in that situation or sometimes react is a learning curve. And so we've had this time to really practice and engage with different types of people, different types of personalities, different approaches to how people share ideas, and also how people share their needs and how we take that on board as adults. This is all things that happen every day. It can be over the dinner table at nighttime. Everyone's in a different space. Everyone has different needs. Everyone is arriving to the space in a different way. It can also happen around a conference table when everyone is sharing collaborative ideas. How do we navigate that? And as adults, we are able to pull on our tool belt a little bit more quickly. For children, we then have the opportunity where we can give them those strategies to build the tool belt, to take it step by step, and to help them to learn and to grow and evolve with different experiences that they might encounter. This then helps them to form the identity of themselves. So in the chat, we will be including a link to the Habits of Mind. It is from the Habit of Mind Institute. And this is a poster for parents. There's one for students, there's one for teachers. If you click on a little bit further and you go onto the website. But this poster in the chat that you can access is specifically for parents. And I've pulled this out as a really helpful tool today because it is a great resource to explore in terms of what resilience looks like through a wider range of perspectives and different dispositions that are skillfully and mindfully being employed by intelligent and successful people. So the habits of mind is something that we talk about in education from a children's perspective and teaching and learning, but it's also about us as educators in the class, leading the class and leading class teaching teams, and how we approach different dispositions with each other and the perspectives that we can encounter and how we navigate that as adults as well. So this is a great resource both for mums and dads, as well as your children at home. There's some nice little visuals in there. So it's quite a nice tool for you to use at home. We as teachers and experts and parents, we all have access to a better understanding of brain development these days. Everyone is talking about brain development in terms of how children are growing, what they need at certain points of time. And so I hope today everybody really takes on board that children are not born with resilience. It is not something that is genetic. Resilience is something that is practiced, where the brain as a muscle is activating different strategies, different techniques all the time. It's reflecting on it. It's building neural pathways as it is finding solutions for problems it encounters. And so the brain actually lights up with every new challenge that a child is encountering throughout their day. This is a great opportunity for us to really step back and go, all right, if the neural pathways are forming and developing in the brain when children are encountering problems, are problems bad? And the answer is no. Problems are great. Problems are a great way for children to really dip into finding out how they are going to move through a challenge and what that will look like for them when they do encounter mistakes that have been made, how they demonstrate empathy, how they might need to stick to their goals and really persevere even when it is feeling quite hard. And so this continues to build on their growth mindset as well. So if we understand the importance of resilience is adaptability, it's about empathy, it is about us working through our strategies and tools in different ways, understanding different perspectives. Maybe we can now look at how we nurture this resilience in children. Dr. Hina, maybe you would like to share a little bit more here?
Yeah, sure, Tracy. So there's a lot in the literature and there's a lot of theory on how to promote resilience and build resilience in children. And there's a very prominent American pediatrician and psychologist called Dr. Ginsberg, who has published a kind of framework of 7 C's that he feels can help build resilience in children. And these are competence, confidence, connection, character, contribution, coping, and control. And by using these 7 C's, you can build a framework of techniques on how to build resilience in your children. So, for example, competence. This also ties in with the growth mindset that we have kind of alluded to, which is the idea that we learn from our failures and we use them to further develop. So by encouraging our children to try new things, to try new things for themselves, whether they succeed at them or whether they don't, and to kind of help them and teach them to move on from there, that allows them to develop new skills and competence. So essentially turn every new experience into a learning moment. Okay, well, it's fine if this didn't go your way, but what did we gain from it? When they learn from it, they take it to the next situation and they build on it. That gives them the experience and the competence and allows them to kind of develop their skills in that. Another example would be teaching children empathy and how to be aware of their feelings. And this kind of fills in with the connection, So that's C. And by teaching them empathy, it kind of helps them to navigate their own feelings, thoughts, and behaviors in a particular situation. And especially situations which were a bit challenging for them, or they were maybe a bit upset by. And this can be as simple as just asking them how they feel when they talk about something that happens at school, exploring that with them, that, sometimes they might come and say that, oh, so-and-so didn't want to sit with me at lunch. So, well, what do you feel about that? And did it make you feel upset? Did it bother you? You're mentioning it. So, and by kind of helping them to be aware of their own feelings and maybe the feelings of others, it will help them kind of build those connections and therefore build resilience in the future.
Yes, absolutely. Dr. Hina, it's those beautiful moments I'm sure that you have with your boys as well, bath time, dinner time, reading a story on the bed, just before bedtime. That's when those little stories come out and those connections can be made. And it's how we choose to engage those moments as well as an adult and what we share with them to really draw out those feelings. I love that you mentioned that, but to also share possible steps that they could action. If this had to happen tomorrow again, what do you think you might do? So that is really beautiful. Thank you. Absolutely, for most schools, it is considered best practice to ensure that we are all working towards supporting children with their learning dispositions and establishing significant attitudes and attributes in each unique child that honors who they are as individuals. and who they are within being a member of a group or a school community or a classroom community or a family community, as well as who they are in the big wide world around them. Resilience is often a prominent learner attribute that is promoted in schools and deeply supported by teachers because it is so important for their emotional well-being, their mental stability, and working through challenging moments that might arise academically in the later years. And so there are 3 key strategies to nurture resilience that I would also like to highlight today. Would be the power of the word yet, acknowledging the relationship between resilience and emotions, and then learning through mistakes. So I'm just going to unpack each of those 3 a little bit further. So the power of yet. When we realize and understand how powerful language is in terms of how we choose to speak with children rather than to children, and how we view children as being confident and capable of using their whole body to communicate and express themselves effectively, then we are able to utilize the word yet and really benefit from this opportunity that it gives us in terms of language, but also in terms of resilience. So for example, if children are finding something hard to do independently, and they may become frustrated or annoyed or disappointed or even confused, we might use the word yet to help open up opportunities to build resilience and to use strategies that build resilience. So imagine, for example, a toddler is learning to put their shoes on. This happens throughout the day, whether they're coming from outdoor play or they're going to outdoor play or they're coming from an experience. They might want to do their shoes independently. This can trigger really complex emotions for toddlers where they might become really frustrated with their shoes. They might become confused as to why they could do it earlier and they can't do it now, why the shoes are not working. They might even avoid the shoes at all costs when they've reached their limit. And so in these moments, we can share with children, I can see that you might be getting frustrated, with your shoes because you are still learning how to put them on. So maybe we haven't got it right quite yet. Let's try and figure this out together. Maybe we need to loosen up the laces. Maybe we need to stretch out the strap a little bit wider so your foot can go in. Within that word yet, we are highlighting a learning curve, as Dr. Hina has already mentioned, that opportunity for growth, that opportunity to try again. It is an opportunity for a solution as well. Should we try your laces? Should we open up the strap? So there's 2 solutions that we are working on, but we're in it together. We're going to figure it out together and what's going to be our next steps of action. This is a pathway into the future and taking us away from the moment that is challenging right now. Imagine for an older child, for example, they are engaged in a team sports activity. They're giving their best, which is what we expect of all children all the time. They know they are giving their best. They employ all these skills that they have been working on, and they end up losing the match. We can say to children, I can see how this may have made you feel really disappointed or even angry because you did do your best. But maybe losing means that we haven't quite figured out the strategy that the other team tried. So why don't we see what that is, and then we might get it next time. This also opens up opportunities for older children to recognize the strategies, the techniques, the skills that others have employed to trial and test those experiences themselves and then constantly reflect. This opportunity gives them the word yet within these statements helps us to acknowledge their efforts as well as the emotion, but also the power to move through the hard moment that they are in. We'll be sharing 2 books on screen now that are titled I Can't Do That Yet, which is a really great book for younger learners, but also if you have any children that are in kindergarten, year 1, year 2 age. And then we have a book called Perseverance, I Have Grit. These are some really great titles to have in your home library. They are great to read through with your child during bedtime, and just giving them those tools, those strategies, and those connections all the time, even during home time. So that will be a really great resource to have at home. Carol Dweck is another author from Yale University that highlights the importance of growth mindsets and how we need to develop flexible thinking rather than fixed mindsets, which gives us that opportunity to think about solutions, to work through problems, to engage in difficult moments, employing our strategies and our techniques, to be open to different perspectives, no matter how big our feelings are in those particular moments. We each have different perspectives. Once we decompress, we are able to unpack that, reflect, and then move forward. So a short video will be added into the link into our chat, which is a link that anyone on our webinar today can click on. You can watch it at your own leisure. It's a really short video from Carol Dweck, but the way in which she describes growth mindsets and the importance of having those skills towards seeing the learning curve and moving away from challenging moments is a really great video to have a watch. So thank you. That's in the chat right now for all of you out there. So that is the power of yet and the language that we are choosing to use with children. The second strategy is acknowledging our emotions, which Dr. Hina has unpacked a little bit as well. In order for us to build resilience, we need to understand that there is this very close relationship between resilience and emotions. We often experience these emotions and move through these challenging moments all within the same time. And so this really is an opportunity where we are learning to build resilience as well as recognize the emotion that we are currently feeling. They are definitely intertwined together. So as shared in the power of yet and naming your emotion, we may also feel that it helps us to really calm down when we are feeling a big emotion in order to gain control. And control is one of the 7 C's that Dr. Hina has highlighted today. So in order for us to calm down, regain control, we are then able to recognize and name the emotion that we were feeling and move through challenging moments in a calm, safe, and positive way. It's important for us to feel heard. It is important for children to feel heard. And we have 2 short options and solutions that can really help to encourage big emotions that can really calm down a lot easier and move through it. One would be Daniel Siegel. He is the author of The Whole Brain. He is a really great resource for mums and dads to have a look at. I know Dr. Amanda is going to share a little bit more about him later as well, but he is a great read for mums and dads to understand the connection between what is happening in the brain when big emotions are being experienced and how we can capitalize on these emotions in the best positive and safe way for children so they are able to learn through it, reflect, pause, and then move forward and move on. There in the chat, I've added in a link for you to Daniel Siegel's book that you can have a look at online. But just a few strategies that I've pulled out because there are 12 strategies that he shares in this book. A few that I wanted to highlight today is really related to what we are sharing. So the first one is name it and name it to tame it. So if you see an emotion, you recognize an emotion with children, it's great for us to acknowledge it, to name the emotion that they are seeing in order for your child to feel that they are being heard and they are then able to decompress. It's also great for us to engage and don't enrage. Sometimes we just need a little bit of time to pause and reflect before we then move forward. And if we are experiencing a really hard moment, maybe we're not ready yet to actually employ strategies that will then move through that moment. Maybe we just need a little bit of time out, or we need a bit of space, or we need to drink some water, or we need to read a book. And once we are calm, then we can move forward. So for example, Children may be seen running away if they are feeling emotions like frustrated or angry or even unsure. Emotions like feeling anxious or disappointed and even embarrassment are very complex emotions where children might respond in different ways. So we would like to encourage them to acknowledge these feelings first. I am angry because, and if they are not able to name it, then we can name it for them. I can see your body is looking angry because you are showing me in this way. Or I can see that you are feeling embarrassed because of how you are hiding your eyes. So we can help them with the language, but we can then encourage them to say these words to help themselves move through difficult moments. It then gives them the opportunity to decide what would be a safe outlet for themselves, safe for everybody around them, and taking time to then have some space away or the sip of water or use strategies that helps them to decompress, re-regulate themselves, recenter, and refocus. So these are great ways to build emotional intelligence, but at the same time, simultaneously, we are building strategies for resilience. We are giving children tools to navigate big emotions that might come in difficult moments where they need to persevere, where they need to stick with it and not give up, where they need to keep trying again and again, even when they are frustrated. So it is a great way for them to nurture that resilience. The third one was about us learning from mistakes. Everybody always talks about this. Learn from mistakes. Mistakes are great, but even still, mistakes are really hard for adults. It's hard for children. So talk to your child about mistakes that they are making throughout their day. You know, it could be from something they've shared. They didn't mean to upset their friend, but they did. So what can we do about it tomorrow? Or maybe they made mistakes in their work and they had to erase a lot of their writing and their thinking and their ideas. I would encourage them to, rather than erasing, put one simple line through their error, because it is from that error that they are able to see progress. As they flip through their journals, they notice, look how many mistakes I made on this page compared to a few weeks later. Now I've only got 1 or 2 lines, you know, and it is in those beautiful moments of making mistakes that truly we are able to build that resilience with children. We are able to show them that the importance is placed on the process of their thinking rather than the actual output of what has come out from their learning or their work that they have done or the task or the activity. Talk to your child about making mistakes from your own day. It's really important to be vulnerable with your child and to share honestly what happened in the taxi with the taxi driver, and you were thinking of going one way and he went another way, and how did you navigate that? It's okay to share that with your child, especially if they are in the taxi with you and they've experienced the situation together. Talk through why you were frustrated. Talk through why you were confused, why the taxi driver was confused. And so it just normalizes mistakes, because we are all making mistakes all the time. Teachers make mistakes all the time with children. And so it's about us going, oh dear, I've made this mistake, right? This is what's happened. This is what we're going to do about it. And so everybody is able to see it, notice it, and then move through together as a united team. So maybe I've been sharing a lot, but I am, so I apologize for that. I do chat a bit. Amanda, maybe you would also like to share some examples as well?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Tracy. I think Tracy needs a mouth of water. She must be really tired. But I do think that whatever Tracy has shared really are solid pointers that I hope we will be able to take away today. So I just wanted to quickly sum up what she has just said. So she talked a lot about the power of yet. She talked a lot about really focusing on emotional literacy. And also, like what Tracy earlier mentioned, normalizing mistakes, because that environment allows for children to have such open conversations with us. Okay, so now I'm just going to quickly share some examples with you. These are very real examples. Some of these examples happen in my home, and I hope that, you know, I would share some possible scenarios of how it could turn out and how we could tweak and reflect on how better we can respond to each scenario. Yeah, so I'll just share the first one. So the first one would be, I'm taking a nursery 1 class this year, and our children are now engaging in lots and lots of mark making experiences, and they are so proud of the work that they have done, right? And I assure you that my children love taking home all the recycled pieces of paper and they stuff them in their bag. And I often wonder, oh, what happens to all these pieces of paper? Do they go home, do they take it out of their bags and they show it to mommies and daddies? And what are the responses that they receive from their families? So I get that, because last year my child was 3 years old and he came back with lots and lots of scraps of paper and he would take them out. Look, Mama, I drew this. And honestly, when 3-year-old children come back with scrap pieces of paper and they are looking more like scribbles rather than drawings, what are your responses? So sometimes parents, we are busy, we're still working from home sometimes, and we want to get the matter over and done with. And so sometimes we say, oh, wow, that's so beautiful. You are so smart. Right? And what about the other response? Is it possible that we pause our work just for that moment, and instead of looking at the product, we look at the process? Is it possible for us to sit and take that moment and reflect with your child? Oh, wow, I see that you drew something today. Oh, what did you draw? How do you feel about your artwork? I can see that you've put in a lot of effort into creating this. So tell Mama, how did you make this? So I want us to reflect on these two responses and how the quality of these responses really affects and does it rob the children the opportunity to develop their self-identity, their self-worth? So the first one really, if we want to brush things aside and quickly get back to work and we talk about how, it's so beautiful, you're so smart. Let's think about it. Where if you make such a statement, it really labels the child. Oh, the child must be thinking, oh, okay, I'm smart because this artwork is beautiful. So what if the next artwork that I produce isn't as beautiful? Would that mean that I am no longer smart? At the end of the day, your child will feel like my self-worth is determined by an adult rather than themselves. Because if you were to look at the second response, you get the child to reflect on how they feel about their artwork. I like to talk about how children draw flowers, and if perhaps the first time around at the start of the year in January, your child came back and she said, oh, these are the petals, I drew a pink flower today. And then you could ask your child, oh, what else did you see on the flower? And then your child would be thinking, oh yes, I remember that there were also some leaves or there was a stem on the flower. And then maybe you could ask your child, oh, did you add that in? Oh, I didn't, I forgot. Then that would give the child an opportunity tomorrow, to go back, insert that observation, insert that reflection, and redraw it, and come back next day and say, Mama, look at my pink flower. Today I remembered to add in the leaves. I remembered to add in the stem. And then ask your child again, how do you feel? Well, I feel so good. I think it looks so good. That self-worth is determined by themselves. It's not determined by the adult who tells them, you are so smart. No, you are not so smart. You are smart. You feel good about yourself, and that's more important, right? You want to develop that self-identity. So I wanted to also just share with you two story books that we read to our children very often. So the first title would be The Dot by Peter H. Reynolds, as well as Beautiful Oops by Barney Salzberg. These are two books that are very commonly read in EtonHouse. I think Tracy would she's nodding.
Oh yes, those books are well loved, with the pages all curled up even. Yes,
they are. and these are very interactive. Beautiful Oops is a really interactive one. And these books are great because you realize that, oh, okay, there are actually children who are afraid to make mistakes. And, as parents, we're like, why? What's wrong with making a mistake? It's okay, right? But as adults, as educators, as parents, have we created that environment for children to make mistakes? Have we been robbing the children the opportunity to make mistakes? That's something for us to reflect upon. So I think very importantly in this first scenario, I would like us to really focus on the process. Let's not look at the product and, tell the child what we feel about it. Let the child tell you how they feel about it. And like what Tracy mentioned, the power of yet. It's okay if a 3-year-old child is drawing scribbles at the start of the year, but by the end of the year, progressively the child will make progress, and we have to trust that process, right? And that's why you guys are with us today on this webinar, because we want the strategies, we want to have that confidence to implement these strategies. So the second scenario that I wanted to talk to you is very real in my household. My child is 4 years old, and unfortunately he will be going to a local primary school, and that means that at 4 years old we start to introduce letter formations to our children. And in my household, my son, the moment I flip up, I take up pieces of paper, I present the pencils, I say, come, let's try writing some of these capital letters. He's like, no, I don't want to do this. I just want to play. Mama, what are you doing? Keep it away. And he would proceed, he'll take the pencils and he'll keep it away and put it in his pencil case. And so like what Tracy mentioned, connect, then redirect. And this is a strategy that Daniel Siegel did share in the book, The Whole Brain. And I think first of all, the important thing is, do we connect with our children? As an adult, of course, we feel like, oh, the letter P is just a straight line down, a curve. What's the big deal? Why can't we just do it? Let's just write it 10 times. What's so difficult about it? But if we connect, and if we put ourselves in the shoes of our 4-year-old children who have just finished the stage of, they'll develop from that stage of mark making and now are slowly being introduced to letter formations, we have to put ourselves in those shoes and feel like, oh, okay, there's a lot of control expected from the child. There's a lot of steps. We have to sequence it right just so that we can form the letter P, capital P. So are we able to connect with our children? How do we respond, right? Do we tell our children, hey, it's very simple. Come on, let's just sit down and write the letter P 10 times. Or do we, like what Tracy mentioned, do we emotionally connect with them? I see that you are frustrated. You keeping your pencils tells me that you are very frustrated. You are not ready to try. You are feeling that it is too difficult for you. But the next step is then very important, right? How do we redirect the child back? Do we then say, okay, it's okay, too difficult, never mind. Let's keep it in the pen. Let's leave the task to the teachers at school. I'm sure the teacher will manage it just fine. So unfortunately, when the child comes home to you, there are certain things like, for example, spelling preparations. These are activities that, as parents, unfortunately, we can't run away from. There will be spelling tests in time to come. There will be need for practices that need to be done at home. And these are things that we can't run away from. So then we need to redirect our child back and say, okay, I know that this is very difficult for you. How can we make this better? Okay, if you're not ready to do writing of letter P, could I perhaps offer you Play-Doh to form the letter P first, and later perhaps we could try, I remembered you love using the chalk. Shall we try that out instead of using pencils or color pencils that feel a little boring and monotonous to you, right? So then redirect it back. Okay, and then there's actually a third response that perhaps some of you experienced when you were a child, and that is if your parents are rather they adopt an authoritarian style and they put their hands on the table and they say, hey, do it. And sometimes we hear raised voices at home. We tell the children, just do it. What's wrong with you? Right? I would like to challenge you to think about the science behind how our brain develops, like what Dr. Hina mentioned earlier. There is this thing called an amygdala hijack. If a child feels an emotional threat, the person that they should really feel secure to is raising their voice at them. Their brain goes into three responses, either one of these responses. They could fight, flight, or freeze. And when that happens, a shutdown occurs. Nothing goes in. You can forget about processing, talking through to your child, talking with your child to get to the task, redirecting that back to the writing exercise, because a wall has been built. They have shut down, they have built up that wall of defensiveness. No matter what you do, nothing is going to go through. So I would like us to think about that, because Tracy is going to then talk about creating a safe place for sharing. And I hope that I've planted this little seed in your head where you think about how an amygdala hijack affects children and how that affects the environment at home as well. Yeah, Tracy.
Exactly right, Amanda. It's almost like, if you can imagine, a kettle, isn't it? And so when those emotions are running high, they just flip their lid. Yeah. And so we have to wait until that lid comes all the way back down through different strategies and techniques that we use to decompress and regulate before we can even talk. Yeah. And move things through. I love that. Absolutely. So creating a safe space or a place for children to share is just as important as nurturing resilience, understanding what resilience is, understanding the brain as well, and the current neural pathways that are being activated with the brain. So if we are expecting children to share their vulnerable feelings with us, to share their mistakes, their fears, and even their worries, it's important for us to also talk about the importance of creating a safe space and to do so, and what this looks like, because within that it all comes together again, and so they are then able to come back to building resilience through this process. So some practical ways to create a safe space for children at home or at school is that, for example, at school it's very important for us to build a strong sense of belonging, build those relationships with children so that we get to understand who they are as individuals, their passions, their curiosities, their frustrations, and most importantly, their hot buttons. Because at home, mum and dad, you would already know them very well. So at school, we have to take a huge time in terms of setting that agreement together as a class community, creating these environments and getting them ready to share. So at home, it is great to use both a family and a school space, which we would call as a culture that you are setting. It is either a culture that is being created at school or a culture that is already created in the home environment, because it honors and it advocates for all voices to be heard, no matter who is in the space. This is creating these spaces and these cultures within each unit, either a school unit or a family unit, is a respectful way to honor each other's sharings, ideas, feelings, and how we do that in a respectful way. So we consider our tone, we consider our volume, we consider how we are using our bodies as well. And this gives everybody in that dynamic, the class community dynamic or the family dynamic, an opportunity to share their perspectives. So definitely the first thing we need to build and create and sustain would be a school or a home culture for sharing. That this is something that we are all doing to validate how we are all feeling at in different points and situations. A strategy to help with that would be creating a calm zone. We would often have calm zones throughout our shared learning spaces in our school environments, as well as within each classroom learning environment. And this is a great thing to have at home as well. So these calm zones can be filled with things that help us to reach that point of calmness, that helps our lid to come back down and regain control. And so things like books that I love to read would be found in the calm zone at home. Different types of calm games, fidget tools, paper and markers if I love to draw, Play-Doh so I can really squeeze and get those feelings out of my body. There might be different textured cushions, pillows, blankets, different calm activities like maybe a card game or a puzzle, something a bit relaxing, but all things that I like. And so we would invite children to take a role in choosing what they would like to place in these calm zones, either at school or at home. But it is a space where anyone can go into, and a space that suits everybody's needs. So it is a great way for us to really reach what we need in different points of the day, but to also give us that opportunity to have space to decompress. Another one would be the importance of the power of our words, and so how we are choosing to speak to children while their lids are flipped and bringing them back down to regulate, as well as how we are sharing ideas with children all the time, sharing our perspectives, sharing our own interactions that may have been challenging. This creates a safe space for children to then share back with us. We also want to create a space where we are able to pause, reflect, and respond rather than react to certain situations. So 2 tools that work really well that are going to be added into our chat now is the zones of regulation, which focuses on the language of emotions and complex emotions, and identifying whether you are in the green zone or if you have now reached a red hot zone, or maybe you are cooling off and you are coming down into the blue zone. So you can have a look at the zones of regulation. There's great language around it, but it also helps children identify and name an emotion. It gives them a color reference if they are unable to name it. And it also gives us an identification of where they currently are in terms of their lid flipping and how they need to be brought back down with some regulation techniques, either independently or co-regulation. And second tool to use would be Kelso's Choices, which is a great little frog who has a range of problem-solving strategies. It's a great flip tool. You can flip through and see what strategy you would like to employ in different situations. It could be a gesture by using your hand and telling somebody to stop. I'm not ready yet. Or it could be giving space, or it could be trying again in a different way. So there's a great range of tools to support children with that. So giving children space is not only physical space, but it can also be the techniques that we use to give them a safe space to share. Dr. Hina, would you like to share something about the safe spaces as well?
Yeah, so what I would say is that giving children a safe space is also about allowing them to be creative. So to find their own way of how they can express themselves, how they can connect to you and how they can communicate with you. Sometimes that is if they can, with some of the tools, they can point to a color. Some of it is having the space in their room to kind of let out their emotions. And some of it is maybe if they want to write rather than talk. So it's about figuring out what their safe space is and how they can communicate. The other thing I would say is another way of kind of giving a safe space is like being a role model for them. So modeling your behavior. And it's kind of like how Tracy said before that, if something hasn't gone wrong, even for you as an adult, share that with your child. Show them that failures can happen. Things don't always go your way. Let them know that it's okay. It's okay to feel a bit disappointed or frustrated with something, but how you then move on from it. And then the same way is if you want them to be open and communicative by being that with them, so be open with them, keep the channels of communication open. By modeling that with them, you're allowing them to do the same. And just briefly, I would say, in the same as how we have already spoken about how social networks and friendships are important for children to build resilience, model that for them too. Show them how you build your relationships, how you maintain them, how you respect others, and how you, how you forge those networks so you have your people around you. I think we're running out of time a bit, so I'm going to
so much to share.
She can give her points too.
Okay, I just wanted to quickly wrap things up with one last point and also a title that I really wanted to share. So a title that I really wanted to share was The Good Inside. It's actually written by a clinical psychologist called Dr. Becky Kennedy, because I think something that really resonates with me and with the speakers today is that if we view our children as children who are good inside, I think that entire perspective then shifts, because when we communicate with our children, when they are going through a challenge, we don't feel that irritation. Our first response is, oh, okay, my child is a good child who's going through a challenge, and my role as an adult is to help facilitate, help them, give them the tools so that they can get through this challenge. And this book is really helpful because it has a lot of practical strategies that really gives us that confidence to also lead our children and have them follow through. And you know, indirectly it then improves their behavior as well. We are really living in a really challenging era because social media consumption is at its highest, and not to forget, it is immediate. So a lot of the times our children, they have a lot of instant gratification. Whatever they want, they get it, you know, and it's immediate. So I think our role as adults is to really instill these habits and to really allow the children to practice these brain muscles so that they can develop the resilience. And that's really what we want for our children, to be equipped with these skills as they, you know, move on in the 21st century.
Thank you, Miss Amanda and Dr. Hina. So yes, absolutely. We have spoken a lot. We have shared a lot as well. And hopefully you've taken some really great insights from this sharing today. But that is all the time we have for everyone today. We want to also honor the hour that you've put aside for everybody who joined us. Apologies if we didn't get to anyone's questions, but hopefully the article that comes out afterwards will be really helpful for you. Thank you, Dr. Hina and Miss Amanda, for joining us. It's been really amazing to share the space with you and to hear your expertise as well. So just to let everybody know, if you are still hanging on to the webinar, that we will be also highlighting some our next webinar series on the Parenting EtonHouse website. It is called parenting.etonhouse.edu.sg. If you would like to also access ebooks, any guides and podcasts directly over there. We have a follow-up webinar coming in October that will be based around developing positive behavior in children. So please do send us your questions so we can address them in the talk there as well. It is really helpful to get your questions before the webinar so we can really shape our sharing and our feedback towards what your current wonderings are. Thank you everybody for joining us. We look forward to seeing you in October. And until then, stay safe. Take care and happy parenting. Everybody.
Thank you so much for your time. Bye.